You know, here's the weird thing with kids. They're stinking smart. And it was real funny. Like, my life led me doing things that I never envisioned me doing. For decades, I worked with kids with cancer. My wife and I were the head fundraising people for the Duke Children's Hospital, and I did a ton of things with St. Jude's, and just love working with kids with cancer. There's somewhere in here that makes me want to squeal. So I got invited one day. A guy invited me down to the Atlanta Mission. Well, I'd never been homeless. I never cared about homeless people. That's nasty. That's honest. My care of homeless people was, if you came up to my car at the stop sign, here's $5, please go away. And I had a guy invite me to lunch at the Atlanta Mission. The first kid I met down there, 21 years old, in the heart of Atlanta, living at the Atlanta Mission. My first thought, if we're going to be authentic, is get out of here. You're 21 years old, you're healthy, get a job. His name was Jason. Of course, being a comic and a writer, I want to know everybody's story. I said, Jason, what's your story? Why in the hell are you in a homeless mission? He said, well, it was my mom and dad and me and my brother, and when I was 11, my mom killed herself. He said 2 years after that, my brother killed himself. And it was me and my dad. We were doing pretty good. In my second year of college, my dad killed himself. And he said, I got to where I couldn't feel anything. I could not hurt anymore, so I started smoking crack and flunked out of school, lost a place to live, lost all my money, and I just couldn't hurt anymore. And I'm sitting across from him going, hell, I would have started smoking crack too. And all of a sudden you realize there, but for the grace of God, I'm in a homeless mission. And what I learned over the years, you know, people tend to view them as drug addicts or alcoholics, and a lot of them are. But that's the symptom. If you go back and find out the reason, so many of them had been molested, so many of them had been abandoned, so many of them had, some horrible trauma had happened to them early in life, and the hurt was so bad they couldn't deal with it, so they numbed. And so the guy, I asked the guy, I said, why'd you invite me down here? He goes, I want you to start a small group. There we go again, small group. He said, these guys have chapel a couple of times a week. They've never had a small group. And my dumb ass said yes, which is the only thing we can do for God, is say yes when he whispers something to us. I said, and I did say to him, I said, there's almost 7 million people in Atlanta, and you can't find anybody more qualified to do this than me, you know. But I said yes, and I had to, when I first started going, I had to stop at Chick-fil-A and buy them chicken biscuits just to get them to come. I had to bribe them. And it started with me and 12 guys, and over the course of a dozen years, it grew to 32 group leaders and almost 300 homeless guys every Tuesday morning. I would get up at 5 o'clock, which was really hard for me, because when you're a comic, you're doing a show late, and because I had kids, I would lease a plane. I spent so much money. I would fly home every night, no matter where I was on the road. If I was doing a show in Minnesota, I'd do it. I'd get back on that plane. I'd fly home. I'd land at PDK at 2. I'd go home. I'd get up at 6, and I'd take them to school. I went through like a decade without sleeping. But when I would do the missions on Tuesday morning, I had to get up at 5 because I had to be at Chick-fil-A at 6:30 and wait for them to unlock the door in order to be downtown by 7. So, and I did it forever. And one of my daughters told me not long ago, I never said anything to the kids about it. She said, Dad, she said, do you know what one of the pillars of my faith is? Is how, without saying anything about it, and I know you were dead tired and you got up at 5 o'clock and you would go get those biscuits and you would go down there and do Bible study with those guys. And she said, I just used to think if there's something that good that you felt that need to share it, that I need to delve into it deeper. So that just became one of the... So it's not just what you say. It's because if what you're saying is not what you're doing, it's hollow. It's what you do. You have to be a guy that lives it out.
So where we live, the power lines are still above the ground. I know in a lot of places they've run them under the ground. Ours is still above the ground, and there's a lot of big old trees. And every time we have a storm, either a tree or a limb falls on the power lines and we lose power. And after about the 3rd time, my wife had to throw away everything in the refrigerator and the freezer. She said, can we please get a generator? So last summer we got a generator, and they came out, installed it. We had had it about a month. One night I wake up about 3:30 in the morning, and I hear the generator running, and I thought, okay, that's weird because it's not storming or anything. Then it went off, and I thought, well, maybe generators test themselves in the middle of the night, and then about 4 or 5 minutes later, it came on again, and I'm like, it's not supposed to do that. So I very quietly slipped out of bed, had on a pair of shorts and a T-shirt, and I grabbed a flashlight and my iPhone in case I have to watch a YouTube video about how do you fix a jacked up generator. I'll have it. Because you can fix anything with a YouTube video. YouTube videos are like the patient father none of us had growing up. You actually learn to fix something. Only thing I learned watching my dad work on stuff was how to cuss. And it doesn't matter how bizarre it is. You can put in, how do I get snails out of a trombone? There'll be a YouTube video about it. So I got my flashlight and my phone, walk out in the backyard, like I said, about 3:30 in the morning, and the generator is on the basement level on the side of the house. So I walk around the side of the house, and when I step on the top step, I step right on top of a copperhead snake. And it bit me right on top of the foot. And every time I'll tell this story, somebody stops me right there. And they'll go, hold on, did you see the snake? Do what? Yeah, I saw him. And I thought, you know what, I'm barefoot, but tonight, let's roll the dice, step on him, see what happens. I did not see the snake, which puts me ahead of you. So the other question people want to know is what it felt like. It felt more like an electrical shock. I thought maybe the generator was shorting out or something. I didn't think I'd been bit by a snake. I did it, and I'm like, dang. And I went down a couple of steps, and I shined the light, and I got 2 holes in the top of my foot with blood rolling out of them. And I shined the light up the stairs, and y'all, he has zero remorse about doing this. He like, and I don't blame him for biting me. I stepped on him. But it is my property. And he's trespassing, and if I call the cops, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. And so I decide if I have to go to the hospital, they're going to ask me what kind of snake was it. And I've spent my life hunting and fishing, being in the woods. I know it's a copperhead, but I'm like, I'll take a picture of him just to prove to the doctor. So I shine my light on him, and I kind of, go in close. And now he's like, take his picture. Because I guess in the snake world, that's as good as it gets for a snake, is to tell your friends you bit an actual human being, right? He's thinking later that night he's going to catch up with his buddies and go, hey, guess what I did earlier? I bit Sam Elliott. And his buddy's like, dude, I love Roadhouse. I can't believe you got to do that. So I got his picture, and now I realize I now have 3 problems. I still have a jacked up generator. Now I've got a snake bite on top of my foot, and I've got a venomous snake between me and the top of the stairs. So I'm like, all right, I got my phone. I left my wife asleep in the bed. I'll call her. So I call my wife, and the phone rings like 7 or 8 times, and she's like, hello. And I said, honey, will you do me a big favor? She's like, oh, I got a headache. It's the middle of the night, It's just not that favor. I said, well, you go to the garage and get a shovel and bring it around the side of the house by the generator. And that's how I knew she was out, because she didn't ask a question. But she brought the shovel, handed it over the rail down to me. And when I was telling this story to my buddy in L.A., he stopped me right there. He goes, were you able to relocate the snake? The snake that bit me on the foot? Yes, I was. I relocated all 3 pieces of him to a cardboard box, and he went in my trash can where he lived happily ever after. But after I relocate the snake, now my foot is starting to hurt, and it is puffed up like a football. And so I go limping into the house, and I said to my wife, I said, I think I got to go to the hospital. So she calls 911, and they said, don't you bring him to the hospital, because most hospitals don't have antivenom. They said, we'll send an ambulance, and we'll call around and find a hospital that's got it, and the ambulance can take him there. So I guess when you call 911, whoever's closest comes first. So our local fire department, which is only like a mile away, they show up first, and these guys come in, and they look like calendar models. I mean, and none of them has a T-shirt that fits, because apparently they were lifting weights at 3:30 in the morning. To the point when they walked in the house, my wife ran back in the bathroom and brushed her hair. Put on her good robe. Well, the EMTs show up right behind him, and when the EMTs come in, the first thing they do is hand me a waiver to sign, because apparently a lot of people's insurance now doesn't cover the ambulance ride, so you have to sign a waiver saying if your insurance doesn't pay for it, you'll pay for it out of pocket. And I'm looking for a pen to sign the thing, and my wife comes over and she goes, hold on. She goes, how much is an ambulance ride? This is a woman that has not looked at the price of anything on Amazon for the last decade. I get bit by a venomous snake, now she's Dave Ramsey. And the guy said, well, it varies, but it's usually around $2,000, $2,500. And she goes, are you serious? She goes, how much traffic can there be at 3:30 in the morning? He said, well, that's the price. And she goes, well, if you don't take him, where are y'all going to go when you leave here? He said, well, ma'am, we'll probably go back to the hospital. She goes, well, I'm going to put him in my car and we'll just follow y'all. I want to ride with them. So I said, I'm going in the ambulance. And as they're loading me up in the ambulance, the EMT actually said to me, he said, Mr. Foxworthy, he goes, we've never had a snake bite before. And to be honest, I have no idea what's going to happen to you. He said, do you want us to put the light on? I'm like, for $2,500? Hell yeah, put the light on. Crank up the siren, open the back door, I'll moon people going down the interstate. I want to get my money's worth on this ride. So now I'm starting to worry, because the EMTs have never had a snake bite, no hospitals have antivenom, and I'm thinking, I want somebody that knows something about snakes. Maybe my doctor will be, part-time Pentecostal preacher or something, or have a turban and a flute. I mean, I want a snake man, So we get to the emergency room, the doctor comes in, and nicest guy, and he looks at my foot, he goes, yep, that is a snake bite. He goes, by any chance, do you know what kind of snake it was? And I was so proud of myself for thinking ahead, and I pulled my phone out. I said, it was a copperhead. And he looks at it, he goes, you're right. Yep, that's a copperhead. He goes, unfortunately, it's a juvenile. I said, why does that matter? He said, well, fully grown snakes, usually when they strike the first time, they do what's called a dry strike. They'll put their fangs in, but they don't let any venom go. Excuse me. He said they don't let any venom go. And they're just saying, I'm here, get back, leave me alone. He said, but juveniles can't control their venom. So when they put their fangs in, they just, let it all go. And I thought, well, there's no shame in that. Because when I was a juvenile, I couldn't control my venom either. And there were a couple of nights that ended with, I am so sorry. Must not have had the safety on or something. I don't know. He said, well, you're definitely going to need anti-venom. He said, and I hate to tell you this because it's 4 a.m. You can't call your insurance. He said, but this stuff is super expensive. Take a guess what super expensive meant. The vial is about that big. 15 grand? 20, I feel like the price is right now. $27.49. $100,000. $100,000. And I know that they get anti-venom by milking the snakes, and I'm thinking, why is it so expensive? I mean, maybe snake titties are just so little, you know, it's like. But when he said $100,000, I know she could not help herself. But my wife said, if you didn't give it to him, would he die? And the doctor goes, well, he probably wouldn't die, but he's going to get really sick. He'd be throwing up, have a real high fever. He said, I guess worst case, he could lose his foot. And she goes, but he wouldn't die. And I'm like, quit negotiating with my foot. It's called stand-up comedy. I got to have 2 of them up here. And so they give me the anti-venom, and they put me in a room, and kind of the idea was, because it's turning blue and it's swelling and it's going up my leg, so the idea was they wanted to stop it below the knee. So every hour or two, they come in my hospital room with a Sharpie and they draw a line, however high it's gone, and they write the time on my leg. And then every time they would leave, my wife goes, they draw the line so they know where to cut it off. Thank you, emotional support team. But the doctor came in the next afternoon, and he looked at it. It never got above this high. He goes, that the anti-venom has worked. We're very thankful for that. He said, and we just talked to your insurance, and they're going to pay the entire $100,000 for the anti-venom. And Dave Ramsey had the gall to say, we weren't worried about that. We just wanted him to be okay. Yeah, the person that wasn't worried about that drove me back home from the hospital. And on the ride home, she said, oh, let me tell you something interesting. She said, I was Googling about anti-venom, and do you know that when a dog gets bitten by a poisonous snake, they use the exact same stuff in the vial that they use on humans, but they only charge $1,500 for it. And I'm telling y'all this because if I ever get bitten by another venomous snake, I have a real good feeling I'm going to go to the vet. And if I do, I swear when I get back home, I'm going right in the living room and pooping on the rug.